9:05. It's November 12th. It's snowing. Road conditions suck. But I'm in a great mood. Let's start off the panel. Trudie Mason's smiling. I like that, Trudie. Hi, Trudie.
Oh. Good morning. You're in a great mood because you just moved 10 minutes away from work.
Yeah, that's right. I walked to, but you know what? So I walked to work this morning, and I had to go up. I had to walk up towards René Lévesque. I had to walk on the street because the sidewalk was not plowed at all. I was in the street, and then this poor guy, he's turning up one of these side streets, turning onto de la Gauchetière. He just tries to do this maneuver, a very simple left turn, gets stuck in the intersection. There's these poor kids that are like waiting to like get picked up by the school bus. He needs to reverse. I actually had to jump in. I said to the parents, I said, "Hey, this guy's trying to reverse because he's stuck. Move your kids away because you don't know if you're pressing on the gas in reverse." I was worried that something bad would happen, so I moved the kids out of the way. And then this guy was stuck. So it's, yes. But for me, I was walking on the street. But
which is the best thing of all.
Walking
to work
10
is
minutes,
the best thing.
10 minutes, not that bad. Did I say hi to you, Anne Lagace-Dowson?
No, you didn't,
yet?
but it's okay. We
got sidetracked.
It's sort of exciting when the first snow falls, right? Everybody's like, oh my God, snow.
It is.
And nobody has snow tires, right?
Nobody's more excited than my dog for the snow.
The dogs and the small kids.
Guys,
very happy.
I want to start off by talking about what everyone is talking about, and that is Don Cherry. Yesterday on this program, we didn't know that he was going to get fired. We're still up in the air. My lines were off the hook. The lines were blazing. People care about this. Now Rogers goes ahead and they fire him. He's gone. I feel Don Cherry just got fired for being Don Cherry. This has been his career. He was hired. His role is Don. We turn on the microphone. You talk whatever comes into that brain of yours. That's his role. He's been doing it now for decades. And as he's progressed, he's getting up there in age, his sentences are becoming a little bit shorter, a little bit more like 3 words here connected to 3 words here. I mean, he talks in a certain respect, not rhetoric-wise, but speech mannerism-wise to Donald Trump, right? Yeah. It's like 3 words here, 3 words here, puts them together. You kind of get what he's trying to say, what he's trying to think, right? This is Don Cherry. So the guy's been doing that. He goes on air. Listen, he says something that I think, most people don't agree with. It comes across as something
agrees
with. Well, no, hello. I opened up the phone lines at 9:30 yesterday. A lot of people agree with what he said.
Oh, really?
So, he says stuff that a lot of people don't agree with, but he was hired for opinion. In my take is this: like, if you're Rogers and you have a problem with Don Cherry saying these things, you go to Don Cherry and you say, "Listen, Don, we've paid you to do this. This is your role. We don't like what you said. Okay, from now on, stay out of politics, stay out of immigration issues, stick to sports, and you continue your job." Okay, I don't fire the guy for actually doing what he's paid to do. And I think it's another example of social media going nuts, analyzing one sentence over and over and over, and now the guy's gone. And especially from a broadcaster role, how many times the people in this room have been on air where something said, and we're just like so happy it wasn't taken on Twitter and then whittled down to 5 seconds and then replayed, because we could all be canceled.
No, but the thing about Don Cherry is this has been his shtick for 37 years, right? Yeah. His shtick has been dissing First Nations people, women journalists, French, Quebecois hockey players, European hockey players, people who wear face protection, and I could go on, right? Mm-hmm. And completely, like, bald-faced, in-your-face, sort of super, mostly ignorant, in my opinion, right? Like, so that's my opinion. The thing that I find really interesting, and this is a point that Jay Farrar made, is if Ron MacLean had said, whoa, Don, whoa, you're out of line there, then I think Don Cherry probably would be employed today.
Correct.
And that's the problem, is that nobody contradicted this guy, who is, of course, a blowhard of the first water. Mm-hmm. Like, this guy has made a career out of being a blowhard. So the people who say, oh, you can't say anything, yada, 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 well, they're right to a certain point. Like, you can't undermine the contribution of other racialized people to the wars. Like, if you look at the history of the First World War, at Ypres, where, John McCrae wrote in Flanders Fields, mm-hmm. there was a huge division of Indian soldiers who were slaughtered in those same trenches as the Canadians. The Sikhs, the Indians, the Pakistanis, the Caribbean. So, like, there's been this doesn't. He doesn't know anything about history. Clearly, right? That's number
The
number
guy,
one. But
the
secondly,
guy talks out of his you know what.
Yeah.
And he's paid to talk out of his you know what.
But then, if he's going to do that, then either the broadcaster makes sure there's somebody to contradict him, or they call him up on the carpet. And they haven't done that. And it's interesting, like a lot of francophones in Quebec are saying, geez, when he was attacking us, nobody was calling for his head. He went too far when he said this stuff. Like, it was okay to attack francophones in, practically racist terms. It's like he's out of touch with reality. He hasn't stayed on top of stuff. Hockey isn't what it used to be. It's not rock'em sock'em hockey anymore. The game has changed, and he hasn't. And that's the problem, I think.
Well, I think part of the problem is we don't actually know if he's wrong. I believe he's wrong. I think if you were to do a comprehensive survey of poppy wearing as a percentage of population, you probably come up with roughly the same numbers with immigrants and dessouche Canadians, if I can use that word, or maybe not, or maybe it highlights the fact that our education system has to do more to educate people about why the poppy is worn, and then we would see a higher penetration of poppy wearing in immigrant communities.
But I think we do see it.
That being aside, no, we don't know. We have no numbers, Anne. I'm saying I don't know that I
don't know either,
only
but...
think and assume that he's wrong. I only
But
assume.
my impression is that many immigrants are actually more patriotic than so-called dessouche
Are they
Canadians.
wearing poppies?
I've seen lots of people wearing poppies.
But again, you're acting like Don Cherry. Let's not act like Don Cherry.
But you're acting like Ron McLean should have, right?
Let us just say we don't know whether he was
Cherry?
right.
Wait a second.
Wait a minute.
Did she just compare me to Don Cherry?
Can I finish my thought?
She did, but can I just? I have to be the referee here, and just break in. Can we just say that it's really not the issue? Like whether the percentage of immigrants that wear poppies or not, doesn't matter. He was talking completely out of his behind.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he was making assumptions based on what he saw in a couple of different places, and like I said, I think that he's wrong. I would like some numbers to back that up my assumption, but I agree. I admit I'm using an assumption here. This is my take on the fact that he was given the boot. I'm not upset about the way this was handled the way you are, Elias, because I think Hockey Night in Canada gave the guy a second chance. He was told, yes, you can stay, but you're going to have to walk that back or do an explanation. You're going to have to say you're sorry. He's not elaborating on what the conditions were, but he admits he was offered the ability to stay with the broadcast. And I assume eat a bit of dirt. Mm-hmm. And he refused to eat the dirt. He refused to say he's sorry. So now he's unemployed. All I'm concerned about is that Hockey Night in Canada gave him a second chance. That's all I wanted, because I do not believe in deplatforming people if they say something that is controversial.
Let's hear from Don Cherry himself from last night on News Talk 1010 in Toronto.
I still feel that everybody in this country that likes our way of life, these beautiful people gave their lives in their 20s and in their teens for our way of life. They should wear a poppy, and if that's offensive, then there's nothing I can do about it. That's the way I feel, and I'm not changing, and I don't regret a thing.
So there you go. He's stuck by his guns.
He actually did nuance that.
Yeah.
What he said was he wasn't talking necessarily about new immigrants. He was talking about everybody, all immigrants, including the Irish, the British, and the Scots. That's what he said.
Which is why I think it's so insane to make a decision like this based on a fragment of two sentences that we put together. And now you say, oh my God, he's got to be fired, when he's done a career on just talking out of his behind. I find that insane. But I just want to get to why he was fired. Rogers signed a $5.2 billion contract with the NHL 6 years ago. This is the 6th year of the deal. That deal is an escalator deal, so every year it gets more and more expensive. Rogers has been hurting bad because of the deal. Rogers Media has been hurting bad. They are not making as much money as they thought they would. We saw over the summer, they cut a whole bunch of people from Sportsnet in cost-cutting measures. Here in Montreal, Rogers Media got rid of breakfast television, my old gig, right? Because they had massive layoffs and cost-cutting measures at Rogers Media. I think what happened here, by the way, is they were looking for a way to get away with firing Don Cherry. They probably wanted to do it over the summer, but they felt that people would complain so much if they just unceremoniously dumped him. And they said, oh my God, he said something stupid on air. Now we get to fire him. and we get to save $1 million plus. Praise the Lord, hallelujah, and they're getting away with it. That's what I think is going on here. I don't think Don Cherry was fired by Rogers for what he said. I think it just coincides very nicely with cost-cutting measures. Just going to keep going with Don Cherry just for a few more seconds here because we have talked about it while we were listening to traffic. We kept talking about this on that Rogers deal, by the way. You know, when they signed that, the CEO at the time, of course, all of these CEOs that sign these terrible deals, they end up leaving and getting wonderful parachute packages. Anyways, so CEO signs this deal with the NHL. The whole thinking, by the way, Rogers was, oh my goodness, here's what's going to happen. We're going to sign this exclusive deal with the NHL, and now millions of people will ditch their cable and internet and phone provider and come over to us because they want exclusive NHL content. It did not happen. Nobody's going to switch their cell phone provider just because they want access to a certain bit of content here and there. That was the mantra at the time at the company. It's completely gone by the wayside, and they need to make up money here. I mean, I really think they were looking for an out, and Don Cherry served them up on a silver platter. Hey, this is a way for you to get rid of me. They probably said, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to stand on your head, you got to go speak to orphans, you got to do this. And he was like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, they probably made it so onerous that the only choice for him was to go. That's what I think. Anything you want to add, guys?
That is super interesting. I suspect that that's part of the agenda. But the fact of the matter is the guy is a dinosaur. Yeah. And I think in many ways, like I saw a funny tweet go by. It said the millennials managed to bring down a wealthy old white guy. Right? And I think that's what's happened in areas around Toronto and Montreal. Like this, the world has changed. Hockey is declining. TV is declining. Mm-hmm. And Don Cherry is part of an old regime.
I think a lot of hockey commentary is talking out of your backside no matter what. So,
well, possibly a lot of commentary.
That's right.
Period.
I mean, he's paid to be entertained. Listen, he was paid to talk like a guy at Tim Hortons sitting at the table with his friends. That's what he was paid to talk about.
Meanwhile, pulling down $1 million a year or something for like 3 seconds on the television.
So, if you have to cut, if you're a company that's in cost-cutting mode, I'm sure you're happy. Okay, we're going to move this along. Boy, do you own an SUV and do you live in the Plateau? It's going to get a lot more expensive. We just had an election in the Plateau Montreal borough, right? And Luc Rabouin, the new mayor,
new Luc Ferrandez.
Yeah, the new Luc Ferrandez, the new borough mayor there, never mentioned during his election campaign, never mentioned, oh, by the way, if you own an SUV, you're going to start paying more. Never mentioned it. Now he comes into power, and what they're going to do in the Plateau is, and they won't say how much, but they say if you own an SUV, you will pay significantly more for your vignette, your street parking. Right now, it's $140. It's going to go up. They won't say how much. If we look at what they did in NDG Côte-des-Neiges, right, they doubled the price. So, I guess the first thing I have for you, because we can talk about, should we increase vignette rates? But how do you get away with this? You just have an election. And you don't mention, oh, by the way, we're going to increase the cost for your car to park on the street, and then you get elected, you do it right away? How brazen can you get?
Rob Ford did that. Precisely that. He ran to be Premier of Ontario. He said there will be no cuts to education, yada, yada, yada. He's laid off like 20,000 teachers or something crazy. So I think politicians, this is why people are super skeptical and even cynical, flat out cynical about politics and politicians. Like you'll remember when Projet Montréal ran, they said... the taxe de bienvenue, the welcome tax, they said more welcome, less tax. And then they turned around and increased people's property taxes, and they certainly didn't touch the welcome tax. Although they did sort of build up this grant that you can get if you have kids and you buy certain kinds of properties, you can get your welcome tax forgiven. I think this is unfortunately what politicians do. And I lived in the Plateau, and in fact, at one point we did own briefly an SUV. And I think the Plateau voters are probably okay with that. Like in the Plateau, you do not need a car.
Really? Those families that have to go to hockey practice and they own one SUV, you think they're okay with that?
Probably. Yeah,
I think
that's a very unusual jurisdiction, the Plateau and the Mile End. But I suspect that they come in with huge majorities, the Projet people.
Yeah.
At all levels in that jurisdiction.
67%. I mean, yeah.
So they're going to say, "Oh, geez, you should have told us." But I think they're probably going to vote for Projet anyway.
Well, yeah, I think that I'm trying to remember that was it a fable about, you pick up a snake and it bites you and the snake says to you, well, you knew what I was when you picked me up.
It's my nature. Yeah, it's the scorpion.
You know what? They voted for this guy. They knew what he stood for. They knew he was following in Ferrandez's footsteps. I find it very difficult to defend SUV owners because I feel basically if you own an SUV, you got money. They're very expensive vehicles. You're tanking that thing up every week or two, man, you got money. If you can keep that thing on the road with the expensive tires and the gas and the reg and the insurance, you got money, and I'm not going to, cry because you're getting dinged for an extra $75 or $80. That being said, I can understand why they're going to be ticked, because when you buy a service from your municipality, there should be some fair play. And what you're buying is a parking space. And your vehicle may be about the same size as a minivan, which, by the way, is not classified as an SUV and can well accommodate, the kids in the hockey gear, that type of thing. Why should you pay more if your vehicle is about the same size as a minivan? Yeah. So how are they going to determine this?
So I wonder if they're going to do it by engine size, like they did in NDG Côte des Neiges, because if they do it by engine size, then it would apply to a whole bunch of vehicles. They did it by cylinders,
right?
And
number of cylinders?
And engine size, like 3.5 liter engine or 2.2 liter engine.
Who even knows the size of their engine?
It's on your registration.
It's on your reg.
It's on your registration.
Okay, cool.
So listen, I want to point out a couple things. First off, there are some streets in the plateau where the vignettes are sold to 130%. Okay? So they're selling more vignettes than they actually have spots on certain streets in the plateau. But I don't think owning one car is this, even if it's an SUV, is some luxury that, oh my goodness, you own an SUV, you have the money, you should be able to pay for it. I think when it comes to your one vehicle, it should be affordable, because families do need it, whether it's an SUV or a minivan. It's all the same. You want to transport cargo and you want to transport kids. Where I think they need to attack, where I think we really should go after, and I think it's a much more fair way of doing things, is the second vehicle. Let's make that first car affordable so everyone, any family, because it's a measure of freedom as well for a lot of families, right? Be able to freedom to go away for the weekend, to go take your kids here and that kind of stuff. But I think, when I see people in the plateau or in Côte des Neiges NDG and they've got 2 or 3 vehicles, I think that's when you got to start making people pay. Let's attack that. Multiple vehicle ownership inside an urban dense core, as opposed to dinging any single tax owner, any single homeowner that's wants to have one vehicle for their lifestyle in order to have a little bit of freedom.
I'm going back to this difference between the minivan and the SUV. The SUV is a luxury vehicle. It's actually classified as a truck, I believe, right? It doesn't actually fall under the definition of just a regular vehicle. Families, whatever, I don't know the descriptions.
No.
But so it's in a special category. Often it's a four-wheel drive thing. It is like, I think the SUVs, they're in the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 range. I think Trudie has a point. I think it is an affluence thing, right?
Well,
it's like a decadent thing.
I don't, and by the way,
it's like if you smoke, you pay extra tax. If you drink, you pay extra tax. If you drive a fancy schmancy vehicle, you pay extra tax.
I'm sorry,
I don't know.
There are SUVs now that sell, I'm thinking like the Nissan Kicks. It's an SUV. It's $19,000. That's not a luxury vehicle. Someone here texting me in, I have a 1997 Honda CR-V. Would that count as being rich? I drive 8,000 kilometers per year. A lot of people are saying,
But does that person live in the plateau where parking is a really big problem?
And that's a good point. And I would attack the second and third vehicle.
Who exactly are you comparing yourself to? When $18,000 is $8,000 more than I paid for my used Corolla. Yeah, I think you're driving a luxury vehicle because you have the option to pay a lot less.
I don't have a car at all. And I don't feel particularly
So you want a rebate?
No, but I'm just saying it's not a God-given right to own a vehicle, number one. Number two, it is certainly not a God-given right to own a fancy schmancy vehicle, like an SUV.
I'm just getting a lot of pushback here from people that say, owning an SUV does not mean luxury. And I'm here,
Well, it's a fair point. A lot of people are stuck owning cars because where they live, there's no transit. But, there's a big social issue here around the whole question of transportation.
We also have to pull our heads out of our collective backsides and realize that in most cases, internationally comparing our lifestyles to people elsewhere, yes, owning a vehicle is a luxury. I will admit I have a vehicle. That is a luxury for me as an individual to own a vehicle. By any international standard, I think that's a luxury.
Yeah, but you can't, come on. You're comparing yourself to someone in a third world country?
Yeah, exactly.
No, you have to compare yourself to Canadians.
No, because I also agree, for example, that for a first permit for parking in the plateau, I should pay. I got no problem paying $140 a year for a street parking space in the plateau because that comes with the affluence I have.
Of course, but by that standard, eating sandwiches is luxurious. I ate a sandwich. I'm so luxurious. I mean, come on.
We have to consider the fact that we lose sight of really how luxurious our lifestyles are and the fact there's a cost to them.
God, I think you're, by using that word luxury to describe someone who has, a $20,000 vehicle.
Yeah, suck it up, Buttercup.
Ooh.
Whoa, here, Trudie.
I want to get this in. I have 3 minutes, and I want to talk about this because it's my favorite government in the world. It's the CAQ. And François Legault sticking by his man. François Legault sticking by Simon Jolin Barrette yesterday saying, 100% confidence, he's my guy. And he said this literally 2 hours after he was forced to admit that the statistics that were used by the immigration minister to figure out what industries, what types of employment would be affected by this change were 2 years old. He was using 2-year-old data in order to make a huge change to Quebec's immigration system. Legault admits that, but he goes, no, he's still my guy. Are you surprised?
No, because, this guy, Simon Jolin Barrette's nickname is the robot, right? At the NADAS, at the National Assembly. Like, he is a guy, he is like Legault's lieutenant, his, the Dauphin, like he maybe is the guy that Legault thinks is going to take over the party. And the fact that they didn't do their homework doesn't particularly surprise me.
It's their MO.
Yeah, I think they're very into corporate sort of style decision making. Like the CEO, Legault, says do it, and Simon Jolin Barrette executes it. It's not really thought through analytically. It's not. They don't ask the public servants, the fonctionnaires who work for us, who are supposed to do the research. They just fly off the handle and do stuff. Witness Law 21. Which is so ridiculous. It is like a problem looking for a solution. A solution looking for a non-existent problem. Anyway, you know what I mean. Like they basically make these things by fiat. They invoke closure. They do all kinds of undemocratic stuff. So, I'm not surprised.
Well, I think there's something to be said for a mentor who allows his or her best student to make mistakes. It's just when you're talking about a government and a minister...
It's like
he's letting his guy take the rap.
Yeah,
too,
well, because he also knows that this particular cabinet minister is willing to take the heat. He's willing to take the heat, and
that's right. If you're François Legault, you're like, that's the guy. He's my guy. And then where does the heat go? Goes there, and it deflects off you.
And there's a quiet deal made, as in you take the fall for this, and in 6 months, when the news cycle has completely forgotten about this, I'll figure something out for you.
And Lagace-Dowson, Trudie Mason, that was just a wonderful, boisterous panel. Thank you so much. All we need to do is talk about Don Cherry. Got us all riled up. Trudie Mason.
Dun Cherry, as they call him on Twitter. Dun Cherry.
Trudie Mason's going to exit the studio, do luxurious things like wear a sweater.
Oh, come on, Elias. Jeez.
And eat my lunch out of a lunch bag.
Let me tell you. Yeah, exactly. So luxurious. How dare you?
Thankful I'm eating, pal.
Trudie,
Thankful I'm eating.
Trudie, you're getting it, by the way, on the text line. People did not.
I'm sure. Because no one wants to admit that they're affluent. An affluent person is someone who makes $1 more than me. Mm-hmm. That person is affluent. I'm not affluent. I have a car, yes. I have an SUV that I can plate and fill with gas and insure. I'm not affluent, no.